This is an old oak chair that's been in my family for probably since I've been alive. And it broke a bunch of times, and when my parents threw it out, I held on to it because I figured I'd make something out of it. And I had the idea of turning those leg supports into handles for hammers. Um, when I took a look at the grain, it's pretty vertical, like straight, and I think that means it'll make a good hammer handle. So before I got started, I sanded off all that polyurethane. I just didn't want it on my handle, so I got rid of it at this stage before I had anything cut or fitted. Then I'll trace the shape of the hole in the hammer head onto my handle, and that's going to let me know what wood I need to get rid of and what wood I need to keep. I'm going to cut that excess wood off at an angle so it creates a taper. That way, whenever I hit the hammerhead or beat the hammerhead onto the handle, the fit just gets tighter the further down it goes on the handle. And once the head starts to fit on the handle, you can beat it into place. You can hold it upside down and hit it with a wooden mallet. Make sure it's wood, or if it's metal, you might split the handle. And here you can see I got about a half inch sticking out of my head. That's fine, it's a little much, but there's not much I can do about it. I beat the handle out of there, and then I cut the little slit for the wedge to go in. Just do your best to make sure that it's as centered as possible and that the cut is straight down the handle, not like veering off to one side. Then I took a piece of scrap oak over to the bandsaw, cut a wedge out of there. I just eyeballed it, didn't trace it or anything, and it turned out fine. We'll focus our attention back on the handle. I didn't like just the straight up cylinder or circle feel on my hands, so I flattened out the sides with a hand plane. And you can see the profile of what that looks like here. I just like it more visually, and it feels better. I'm going to sand it with some 100 grit sandpaper. I think that's fine for this handle. It's just a simple rough handle, nothing fancy. Then we'll start to fit everything together, stick the head on the handle, beat it into place, stick the wedge in there, and we're pretty much done. Here's that wedge that I cut out on the bandsaw. I'm going to put some wood glue on there. One, to act as a lubricant so the wedge slides in there a little easier, and two, it's glue, so once it dries, that wedge is going to stay in there, hopefully. And one thing I'll advise you to do when you're putting the wedge into the handle is just make sure you start it as straight as you can, because if it starts at an angle, it's very hard to fix. I tried to fix mine with a pair of channel locks, and that just kind of crushed the wood. I wouldn't advise that. So take your time, be patient, do your best. And once the wedge is driven in there as far as it's going to go, I'll cut off the excess. I left about 1/8 of an inch sticking out. That's just kind of a personal preference. I figure if it does loosen up for some reason, I have some room to work with to drive more wedges in there. There's also a gap at the front of that hole, so to close that gap, I just drove another baby wedge in there. And to finish it off, I'll put some mineral oil on the handle. It makes it look a little nicer. and it'll also protect it from moisture. Like if I leave it out in the rain or if sweat gets on it, it won't have as big of a negative impact on it. I was hitting this on wood and metal, and I didn't have any problems with it. So handle making doesn't have to be super complicated. I hope I showed that to you in this video. Thanks for watching.